Hey there, it's Sam, and I'm making this quick video on the spring equinox to explain the seasons. And I have a couple props here. This is an apple and this is a lime, but for the but for the purpose of demonstration, we'll say this is the sun and this is the earth. Now the reason we have seasons is because the earth in the sky doesn't sit like this. The equator is actually tilted up like this. That's called obliquity. The way the earth sits in the sky. The earth is tilted, and this is what makes the planets and the sun appear to move at an arc across the sky. It's because relative to us, this arc is being mimicked. Now, relative to whether or not, to where the earth is in its orbit around the sun, we experience seasons. Now, this obliquity, when the earth is at this point in its orbit, this is the first day of winter because the rays of the sun are hitting much more direct on the southern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, this would be the first day of winter, and this would be the first day of summer in the southern hemisphere. You see the rays of the sun are hitting directly on the southern hemisphere, and the northern hemisphere is tilted back. Then we have the equinox, the vernal equinox, which is today. And this is because the sun's rays are hitting equally across the equator on the equinox. It's when the sun appears to cross the celestial equator moving north. That's the technical astronomical term. This is the celestial equator, and the sun appears to move north, which means it's getting brighter in the sky. And on the spring equinox, it's when the sun crosses the celestial equator moving north. Now the sun reaches its zenith in northern motion on this day, which is the first day of summer in the northern hemisphere. You can see now, let me switch hands, on the first day of summer in the northern hemisphere, you see that the sun's rays are hitting most directly in the northern hemisphere, and it's the first day of winter in the southern hemisphere. Again, this is the height of the sun's northern course. And so the height of the sun's northern course happens on the first day of summer. We have the culmination of the northern course of the sun and the most light. That's why the summer is the longest day and the first day of winter is the shortest day. But then as soon as we hit the first day of summer, that first moment, then the sun starts to move south again immediately until we hit the autumnal equinox, which is when the sun crosses the celestial equator moving south. Again, equal days. The term equinox means equal night. And then it continues to move south until we have the first day of winter, which is where we started. First day of winter in the northern hemisphere, first day of summer in the southern hemisphere. So this is why we have equinoxes, and this is why we have equal days and equal nights. That's what equinox means. And then the solstice, which is when the sun changes direction. It's actually the longest day and the shortest day, depending on which hemisphere you're in, but it's also the moment that the sun changes direction. That's why we celebrate something like Christmas on the darkest day of the year, because it's the return of the light. We don't tend to celebrate the lessening of the light on the first day of summer, which is the beginning of the southern course. But either way, it's an interesting phenomena to know, and you should understand your place on the earth and that this is what's really going on. So on this equinox day, astrologically speaking, this is the first day of the sign Aries in Western astrology, or those who use tropical astrology. Western astrology, very small fringe group of Vedic astrologers use tropical zodiac. But Western astrology uses the tropical zodiac to be to measure out the zodiac, not the constellations. So in Western astrology, the first day of the spring is the first day of the zodiac and the first day of Aries. So this is the first day of Aries for those who use the Western astrological system. But either way, this seasonal quality of astrology and this, kind of irreducible fact that we're on a ball moving around a big ball of fire, that we're on a rock moving around a big ball of fire, should not be discarded just because, let's say, you practice Vedic astrology and you use the sidereal zodiac sometimes it's like, well, I don't pay attention to that. Of course you need to pay attention to that. There are many, many parts of Vedic astrology that implore us to use tropical zodiac. It's incredibly important. The Earth going around the sun, especially, there are many things in Shadbala. There are things that have to do with other types of astrological phenomena that is supposed to be used and measured and calculated using tropical zodiac. So it's incredibly important. Obviously, the Earth going around the sun. So anyway, it's the first day of spring. It's the equal day equinox. And that means that for the next 6 months, there will be more light in the northern hemisphere. That's one of the things that you can say, because once the Earth crosses the celestial equator moving north, once the sun crosses the celestial equator moving north, that means there's going to be more sun in the northern hemisphere until we reach the next equinox, the autumnal equinox. Then the sun crosses the celestial equator moving south, which is where it's been. There's been more sunlight in the southern hemisphere since the last autumnal equinox. So in the northern hemisphere now, we're celebrating that there's going to be more sunlight in the northern hemisphere for the next 6 months. And my friends down under, below the equator, are celebrating the autumnal equinox, which means there's going to be more darkness in the southern hemisphere for the next six months. So anyway, I hope this was helpful.